got it. And if right, so praise Yah. Already, I think we got this figured out now. Whew. I think we got this figured out now. Am I? Amen. All right. I'm sorry, y'all. Where were we at exactly? That took so long. I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to leave anybody hanging. Where were we at? Did I finish up the last thought before we started having the issues? Did I finish the last thought before we started having all these issues coming together or showing up? Get Facebook up and running. Did I finish the last thought? Anybody remember? Want to make sure that we did. All these problems, but we praise Yah that He is able. Let's see if we can finish this up. Alrighty, post this podcast. Praise Yah. Alrighty, okay. So we're talking about counterfeit. We don't want false versions of ourselves. How you doing, Donna? Thanks for being part of the community. Right. So for those who are still with us, praise Yah. Thank you for hanging in there. Hopefully others will find it some other time, or maybe they won't, but prayerfully they got something out of this where we are. Right. But we've got to recognize what Yah is doing, right, for us. And what He's doing for us as a people. We can't keep looking at the counterfeit. We cannot keep looking at the counterfeit. Counterfeit is what gets you to start thinking that what's you're in debt to is who you are. Right. I know somebody's not going to want to hear this today, but if we keep it a buck, why is it that a lot of our people want to look like other people who are part of other diasporas? I didn't say that you light skin, you're bad. I'm not doing that. But I just want to say once again, why is it that our people have such a tendency to try and be something that we're not called to be? Yeah, people do have a short attention span on TikTok. Yeah, for sure, right? I'm not even mad at them today. This could be a little frustrating that somebody going in and out or whatever, right? It is what it is. But see, you are looking for the counterfeit version of you. I say this all the time. People will talk about live your best life, be true to yourself. But you haven't gone through a salvaging process. That's what salvation is, to salvage yourself. Being saved is different than having or being in salvation or working out your own salvation with fear, with respect, with reverence and trembling, being afraid to go to the left, to the right of who you are and who you've been created to be. And if you're not careful, what would happen is the counterfeit you gets more credit. See, the person who you're in debt to, thinking that that's your credit, the person who you're in debt to is who you start to identify with. That's why you identify with debt. Lawfully speaking, when we're getting rid of debt, all we're saying is I don't identify with that. When you were born, you know this, right? When you were born debt free. That's why they had to get you to register with the state. Somebody gonna think I'm crazy, but just hang in there a little bit. I'll make it make sense for you. Or maybe it won't. Maybe you just need to listen to this and then listen to somebody else who you might respect more than myself. Right? But when you were born debt free as far as law is concerned. So what did they do? They had you register with the state. You got a birth certificate. You were registered with the state. When you were born debt free. So if you were born debt free, then I have to register you with the state in order for you to say that I have the debt of the state. Right? You pay taxes because you believe what? that we have to make sure we all come in to pay taxes. So make sure that we are all debt free. You will say the United States carries this much debt, and so you'll say, and then they'll hit you with something, right? I don't know if they still do this or not because I don't pay attention to this stuff anymore, but they'll hit you with something, and they'll get you to look at the debt calculator, right? And they'll tell you all these different things, right, that they want you to be and want you to become. How you doing, Christy? And they try to get you identified with all these things that have nothing to do with you, right? And then they'll say, hey, we carry debt. So your part of the debt that America carries is yada, 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 yada. But I don't carry debt because I'm a non-citizen national. I'm debt free. I was born debt free. Why is it that I need to register to be part of a group of people who can't pay their debts? If anything, that shows me on your end, especially, that you are not righteous in dealing with finances. You said, do not tell stories on citizens of America, Africans, everyone comes to America and creates debt. Stop. You gotta, if you coming on here to do white versus black, Republican versus Democrat, all that, you missed me. And you missed the point. 14th Amendment changed it to where it doesn't matter. You guys think it matters where you come from. It doesn't matter where you come from, it matters who you come from. Fill out a DS-11 form. Fill out a DS-11 form. And when you fill out the passport form, the DS-11 form, your application, what you will discover on there is that it says very clearly in the first line, do you want to be called a U.S. citizen or do you want to be known as a non-citizen national? Look up what a non-citizen national is. You don't know the difference. If we're not careful, we can be ignorant and argue out of ignorance. And your mistake is coming on here believing that I could care, like that I care with what I'm saying right now, that I care about whether you're African or not right now, whether I care you're native or not, or whether I care you're black or white or whatever colonial construct you want to use, right? But even black, white, and all those things, those are social constructs that are not even lawfully citizens because they have to be fake versions of people. A Negro, according to law, a Negro, somebody who's black, African American, colored, they are all fake versions of people. White doesn't really technically have a status either because it's not a real thing. See, but people come on here, they don't know any better. If your mindset is, oh, Africans come here and they get debt. Yeah, Africans come here and they sign up for debt too. But you were born debt free. May I say that again? Were you not born debt free? Question. If you're, watch this. Let's do something simple because people don't comprehend how this works. They just talking for the sake of talking. How you doing, Michaela? How you doing, Yehuda Ben Yashta? Watch this. Does it make sense that when your parents pass away, that you have to take on their debt? Now, some of you will say, yes, it makes sense that when my parents pass away, I have to take on their debt. But why does that make sense to you? Why does that make sense to you? That when your parents pass away, you have to take on their debt. The reason why that makes sense is because that's what you do with slaves. You never get out of debt. If you are a slave, you're in debt. If you're a debt, you're a slave. If you have a debt or a slave mentality, then you're going to identify with a debt or a slave mentality. So you're going to start taking on things that have nothing to do with you. You think you are born into debt. When somebody passes, you think that whatever they have now is born into your life, but you're not a slave. But you're not a slave unless you identify as a slave. Talking about Africans come over. Yeah, they're foolish enough to come over and start getting in debt too. Why would you get in debt though? Everything in your life has already been paid for. There's not a thing that you have that has not been paid for already. You know this, or maybe you don't because you don't know how law works. Everything that you ever received in your life has already been paid for because you are the chattel. And every birth certificate, and this is years ago, so it's more now, but every birth certificate is worth at least $6.5 million. Most people will never see $6.5 million in their bank account ever, which means that everything you're paid, everything that you have is paid for. Somebody coming on with foolishness talking about is black versus white. You won't even listen to black because they got you to be against black versus white rather than realizing that if you would listen to somebody black telling you the truth, that you would realize that they're doing it to black and white. You think they care? Ultimately, they want you to believe ultimately, and some of them get high enough to carry some of those beliefs that black is worse than white or whatever. But they want you to believe that you're fighting something you can't even hear, that I'm trying to tell you, get out of debt, but you're more concerned about keeping the debt of black versus white. You missed it. The person not even on anymore probably, but they missed it. People will argue, so, oh, see, don't tell me that Africans came over and got debt. First of all, Africans were in debt when they came over because they were slaves. And natives weren't in debt until they started having contracts with white people, and those certain white people came over and they started signing treaties and then not telling them what the treaties actually said, and then even hiring some of the natives and saying, we'll give you more if you'll lie to the natives about what we're saying. And then they didn't even honor the treaties. Go look at what's happening in Sioux Nation now, where Mount Rushmore is now, to where they're still trying to get Sioux Nation to take on $3 billion, $4 billion. If they'll just go ahead and say that the area where Mount Rushmore is the United States corporations now, and they're saying we never signed up for that, we don't agree with it, we don't want it. They're trying to put them in debt, take on this and take on these taxes that come with it, so we can come into agreement that this is ours. But they're debt free. But they're trying to do what? They're trying to do whatever they can to make them look bad, but they can't make them look bad. You can't make our people look bad when they're debt free. They're standing on principle. Isn't that something else that's a financial term? Do you not have to pay off a principal? See, where's your mind at? You have a counterfeit mindset. They're saying we're not trying to go into debt. We're not trying to go into contract with you. We have no contract with you. We have the only contract we technically have with you is that you promised us we would get to keep what was ours, but we shouldn't have needed a contract for that in the first place. It's ours. But you go into debt contracts, and you go into them so well and so often that now people are arguing on behalf of the debt. It's counterfeit. It's counterintuitive. Your intuition doesn't even agree with that because you don't like it when people are in debt to you. You don't like when people are in debt. Why? Because you don't want to have a slave. Because if somebody's in debt to you, then you have this weird conversation all the time to where this person's coming to you always from a place of, okay, hey, is it all right if I come around? All right, this and that. Then they start getting mad at you because they think that you're going to go ahead and be a wicked taskmaster and all this stuff. I don't want to have a relationship where you're in debt to me. So guess what? This is what I'll do for you, right? If you need something, I'll go ahead and just do my best to give it to you. And if you are honorable, go ahead and pay what you said you would pay. If you're not, your debt is not with me. You need to handle that with the Most High. But I'm going to go ahead and live free of debt. I don't want you to be in debt to me. I'm indebted to Pastor Kofi because no, don't be in debt to me, right? If you want to go ahead and pay it forward, if you want to go ahead and donate something to SOC, if you want to go ahead and bless my family, if you want to go ahead and listen more, if you want to share the lives, whatever you do, fine. But you're not in debt to me because I don't have slaves. But people who have a slave mentality, who have that Sambo spirit in them, y'all call it Uncle Tom, but it's really a Sambo spirit, then that's what you're doing. I don't want to be connected to debt. I don't want to be in debt, right? I don't want to be in debt to the Most High. I don't want to be in debt to any man. I don't want to have anybody be in debt to me. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. I want all debts free from underneath me, so that the one that I'm underneath, he can free me of all the debts I have concerning him. You said the Bible is a bibliography of Jesus by unknown authors, not the word of God. Your last breath, SUDNT, I guess shouldn't be in falsehood. But how about this? First of all, Jesus is not even his real name. So if we're saying, Ryan, that you're saying that ultimately we're living lies, you're lying off of his name. That's not even his name. See, I'm not going to be in debt to something that's not even real. That's artificial. I'm not counterfeit, and we're not doing a counterfeit thing. See, you must comprehend. You came in here talking about Jesus. Jesus is half man, half Zeus. Jesus. It's not even Yahashua. So that's your Messiah. But that ain't got nothing to do with me. You hear what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to deal with counterfeit. And then, see, this is what we talk. See, this This is the early rising Bible study session we went over today. Y'all remember we talked about this? Matter of fact, let's go and read it. We won't go through it as deep as we did this rising, but we did Sirach chapter 2, right? Sirach chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. Do you want to go there? Sirach is not in your 66 books, so you have to look it up if you don't have it already. Or it's even known as Ecclesiasticus, excuse me, if you don't know what Sirach is. But let's look at Sirach. Sa'adache, but as many people know it as Sirach. Ecclesiasticus, I don't use Ecclesiasticus, but Ecclesiasticus, by the way, Ecclesiasticus, those are Greek words. So that's not even what they would have called themselves. So people who be like, I'm in the ecclesiastical, this and that, because I'm an Israelite, that's not even our language. But Ecclesiastes is a Greek word, right? Ecclesia. By the way, when people say, oh no, that's the Greek or the Roman way of saying church. Because they didn't say it, they would have talked about ecclesia, and ecclesia doesn't mean church either. Circe means church, circus means church. So if you want to talk about ecclesia, then we can talk about ecclesia. Right? That's a group that's closer to the assembly, the Chaim, as we would call it, the assembly, the branches of Zion. That's closer if you want to get there. So when somebody keeps talking about church is circe. Circe is circus. That's why your churches look like circuses, because that's what the word church comes from. It stems from the same word. You're supposed to have a circus, 3-ring event. The preacher got the top hat on, and you see the lions and the people twirling and doing all this stuff or whatever. You call it praise and worship, and you call it praise dancing. I'm not saying we shouldn't have praise dancers. I'm not saying we shouldn't have mimes. Those things are powerful. I'm just saying it's a 3-ring circus, and you won't even realize that the person with the top hat, all they're doing is trying to sell you or making sure that you enjoy this experience and you bring your children again. That's what it is, right? But we're going to go to Savad Sa'adache, or the book of Sirach, the scroll of Sirach, if you will. And let's look that up. We're going to go to chapter 2. This is what we talked about today. See, I can't be in the counterfeit anymore. We talked about this early for early rising Bible study session. So for those of you that this is a little repetitive, please forgive me. But we're going to deal with the real deal. Praise Yah. We're going to talk some real stuff today. We're not going to shy away from it. People want some real stuff. Let's do some real stuff. How you doing, Small Joint? Thanks for being part of the community. So what does it say in the book of Sirach, chapter 2? We read verses really 1 through 8, but we're going to focus on verses 1 through 5. Watch this. It says, I'm sorry, I just read verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1, excuse me. Sirach, chapter 2, verse 1, excuse me. Son, and like we said earlier this rising, put your name there. If you're a child of the Most High, put your name right there. Right? This isn't for everybody. This isn't for counterfeit. This is for the children of the Most High. Romans chapter 8, verse 19 says the creation, is waiting on the sons of Elohim to manifest, the children. The children are different than the creature. Just because you're a human being doesn't mean you're a child of Yah. You have the ability to be born again and turn into a child of Yah, but not everybody, no matter how many services you go to, no matter how many camps you are part of, no matter how many camps you start, no matter how many live sessions you're doing, that doesn't make you. I'm raising my hand because that doesn't automatically mean that I'm a child of the King. That does not automatically make me a child of the King. I have to be adopted into it. Even if I'm Israel, I have to do some things, right? Prince William had to go through certain things. He had to join the military. He had to get married at a certain age. He had to make sure he's part of the right family. He had to get training from when he was a child to make sure that he's allowed one day to be adopted into the position called king. That's how that works. That's how that works, right? So, son, child, daughter of the Most High, son, when thou comest to the service of Elohim, stand in justice and in fear, and prepare thy soul for temptation. Humble thy heart and endure. Humble your heart, humble your passion. Be not a doormat as far as humility, but humble yourself into the position that you've been called to be in, so that you would have the right passion to what? Endure. In the meantime, incline thy ear, lean in and listen, and receive the words of understanding. And all you're getting, get an understanding, have a standard that you're willing to be under, and make not haste in the time of clouds. When hard times happen, don't try to start making rash decisions or rushing into things because you're so worried about the fact that it's a cloud up. If the cloud is up, you can pray and ask the Most High that it not rain. Or just because it's a dark cloud doesn't mean it's going to rain. Or just because it's raining doesn't mean it's going to rain for more than 30 seconds. Stay in position, right? Humble yourself and endure, incline your ear, receive the words, stand under them, make not haste in the time of clouds. Wait on, that means serve, to wait. A waiter is a servant. Wait, serve, wait on Elohim with patience. Join thyself to Elohim and endure, that thy life may be increased in the latter end. How you doing, divine insight? That your latter days will be greater than your former days. Take all, y'all remember this part? Take all what? All. How much is all? Take some, take what you feel like, take it if it matches your criteria, right? That's what it is, right? Take some. That's what we're talking about. Take some, take everything, take everything. Okay, all means everything, all means all means not just what you feel like. Okay, so it says, watch this, take all that shall be brought upon thee, everything. So wait a minute, I don't receive when somebody calls me a heretic. I don't have to bow down to the counterfeit. But see, watch this, I'm gonna take it, what you say. I'm gonna take the counterfeit that you say, and in thy sorrow I will endure, and in thy humiliation I shall keep patience. But watch this, all you're doing is this. When you're coming to me, we're gonna find out the counterfeit from the real. Why? Because uh I'm sorry, the book of Sirach, chapter 2, verse 5, it says, for gold and silver are tried in the fire. I don't know if gold is really pure until I burn it up and see what's in it. I don't know if it's pure unless I burn it up and I see what's in it. Oh, you don't want to hear that. If I don't try it, if I don't put it in the fire, if I don't put it in the furnace, how can I tell? If Yahashua hadn't been through the fire and I didn't see that his feet, when they were burned up, were black, right? Like brass that had been thrown into the furnace. If I didn't see that he had gone through the furnace, if I didn't see who he really was, if I didn't look at my word and I say, oh, wait a minute, it does say that it matters what he looks like. If I didn't see that for myself, I could have looked at this counterfeit Jesus that they keep trying to present me. But now that I've seen, he showed me. He said, this is what I look. He said, put me through the test. Look at my word. He said, look at what my feet look like. Look at the texture of my hair. People just want you to say white like wool when the word white, white is not a color. You know that, right? White is not a color. Polar bears have white fur, right? But polar bear, white is not a color. White is clear. Polar bear fur is white. It's clear. White blood cells. Look at your white blood cells. You ever looked at white blood cells under a microscope? What color are they? They don't have a color. They're clear. White means bright. It means reflective of color. It means see-through, right? It means the absence of color, but there is no color. So by definition, there can't even be a white person because you can't have. That's why by law, there's technically no such thing as a white person. You didn't believe in white people till the Roman Catholic Church told you that you needed to take over somebody else's land in the Crusades. And then you thought that white was a thing. And now y'all still think that white is a thing, right? That they keep using it against you. There's no such thing as white. White is the absence of color, or there is a such thing, but there's no such color as white. You think that the white, like on the door I'm at right now, I might look at it and say that's a white door. No, it means that it's absent of color or it has less color. The whiter it gets, the less color it has. But you can't have a white person because every person who lives, they have to have melanin. Melanin gives color, doesn't it? So if you're alive, you can't be white. So the person that thinks that they're better because they're white doesn't realize that they couldn't even be alive if they were white. And the person who's black, who says white people are the devil, you're looking at white people rather than realizing that any person can't be white. See, but once again, that's a counterfeit person. It's a counterfeit version. You are in the counterfeit. You're in the counterfeit. Now, I'm not saying, see, that's why you got to start looking at people's families, people's branches, or what you guys call people's tribes, people's culture. See, people have a certain culture, and you can look at people to see sometimes what culture they come out of for sure, but you shouldn't automatically assume they have to come out of that culture. That's why we say in our culture, all skin folk and kinfolk. Just because you look like me don't mean I trust you, bro. You know what I'm saying? Just because you can say aqua aba itasan, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna automatically be like, let me give you all the gold. Like, I don't know you like that. Show me who you are. Have some decorum about you. Look, I'm not a thug. I hung out with them. I grew up with them. I wanted to be them, but they wouldn't let me be in there because they said that I had too much to offer and they wouldn't allow me to go down the same rabbit hole. Even went to prison with some of them, but I wasn't supposed to be there. They got mad that they kept seeing me in certain places. Kofi, you ain't supposed to be here. Get where you supposed to be. Right? We signed up for this. You don't know what you signing up for. And they was right. Right? I ain't a punk necessarily, but I wasn't ready. I don't want what they got. Right? But at the same time, real recognize real. I might not be, hood, gangster, whatever you want to call it. I might not be an OG, but I tell you this much, I recognize them when I see them. Because see, I don't worry about snitches, especially if you're going to do something in my family, but you sign up and you say you're not supposed to be a snitch. We'll find out when you get in front of the judge. We'll find out if you're real, if you're counterfeit. Right? We'll find out all that stuff you was talking and this, that, or whatever. Okay, fine. We'll find out when everybody pull that thing out or whatever, how you gonna act. Even if you respect the gap, right? Are you gonna be somebody that is afraid, or you gonna be somebody that this is what I do? When I was out in the military, you can find out real quick. Look, I was sitting up there, you think you trained for this stuff or whatever, but when bullets start going past your head, you're gonna find out real quick where your heart is. Right? When they put that M16 in your hand, you're gonna find out people that seem to be afraid of carrying it, the people that are at ease of carrying it. See, we're in line with counterfeit. I don't worry about counterfeit. Money is counterfeit. You need stuff that money gives you. Money is counterfeit. I don't look for counterfeit stuff. I don't worry about counterfeit stuff that often. Money is counterfeit. I know you don't want to hear that, but money is counterfeit. It's not real. You're worried about a bunch of stuff that's not real. Right? You're worried about stuff that's not real. Real recognize real, but a lot of people don't know who they really are. Now, I could go to, even though I say the G and I got respect for him, but guess what? The person who thinks that they should have significant, people should look at them significantly because they kill people. That's not who you really are, right? For the G, for the thug, for whatever you are calling yourself nowadays, right? Like, this is why I don't look up to the same people you guys look up to. Am I saying they can't change? Yeah, people can change, but I'm saying I don't look up to somebody who everything out their mouth when they hit in our community, when they rapping and stuff or whatever, everything out your mouth is about drug and this and that or whatever. And people say, well, that's my experience. Look, I come from old school stuff, so forgive me for bringing up old school names a lot, but look, you think that KRS-One ain't come from none of that? But knowledge reigns supreme over everyone. You think that watch this? I know what it is to talk about Run DMC. Run DMC, they was on drugs, and they was gonna start putting some of that stuff in the music. And the old heads came up to Run DMC. They said, "Look, man, children, listen to you. The real G's, the thugs, the ones that run the streets, that Run DMC was still walking all over across. They said, yo, you can't be out here, rhyming like that in front of these children. You're gonna mess them up because they know what that life is. They don't want that life. Have you ever realized that, like, the biggest gangsters that you've ever heard of, whether we're talking about our diaspora, whether we're talking about the Italian diaspora, whether you're talking about the Chinese diaspora, whatever, the Japanese diaspora, triumphants, all stuff like that, MS-13. Have you ever realized that, like, big time thugs never want their children to be thugs? You ever thought about that? That people who live that life don't want people to live that life? Like, people who want to raise children and see their daughters, they don't want their daughters to marry into that type of family because they know that it's not righteous. They've made a decision to be demonic, but even in that, they're hoping that in some way their selling of their soul will allow their child's soul to be fresh and clean. It don't work like that, but that's the mindset. They don't want it. But see, they don't tell you this, right? But people ain't trying to have their children. Ask Young Thug. Is that young? Is Thugger the one that's Georgia? Georgia. I'm trying to say Reno. That's not it. The Georgia got caught up by the feds. What is the act I'm looking for that they got him on? It's usually a Fed act, but they didn't get him on the feds to say that Georgia does the same thing. Whatever that's called. Rico. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Is it Young Thug? Ask Thugger if he want his babies to be where he's at right now. He don't want them there. See, that's counterfeit. Now it took him. He had the opportunity to change his life over and over and over again, and yet somehow, some way, believe that he had to be somebody that was offing people. But that's a fake version of who you are. He said, "No, I'm not even gonna make it. I'm gonna try and live counterfeit more than I'm gonna live the other stuff." No, and I'm gonna just be honest with you, right? I don't look at people the same way you do. Eminem, you can say whatever you want. Y'all can try and justify it now. Eminem made who he was off of saying that I'm gonna be a poor white boy who's on drugs. That's how he made it to the scene, and that's how he got his popularity. Say whatever you want. He said, "I'm gonna use somebody else's culture, and I'm gonna go ahead and be considered to be the greatest of what's not even mine." Right? Call him whatever you want, but that's real. I'm not saying M can't flow. I'm not saying M has no skills, but that's what he did. I'm not gonna act like they're at the same time. See, because we do this thing. Look, Biggie Smalls did a whole bunch of damage too. Is he talented? Yes. But am I gonna act like there wasn't no damage? I get it. I'm with you, Biggie. It was all a dream. Used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and Pepper and Heavy D was in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. But guess what? Them 10 crack commandments too. Them 10 crack commandments did a number. There's people that still live off of the 10 crack commandments, even if they never sold it. That's their 10 commandments. I know you don't like my talking about this, but this is real. That's counterfeit. Right? That's counterfeit. It's counterintuitive. It's not bringing us anywhere. Having somebody, I don't know if it was Kodak Black or somebody else, but having somebody come on there and talking about I can't even marry our sisters and having that mentality and preaching that and putting that in lyrics and stuff like that. I'm too black. I don't want to get with another girl that's black as I am, because if I get with them, then we're going to have a really black child. That's damaging. As much as I love, and I love me some uh um I'm trying to say Lupe, even though I love me some Lupe, but that's not Kendrick, right? I'm talking about Kendrick, old Kendrick, rigor mortis, even, right? Got me breathing with dragons, right? All that stuff. I put an egg in you bastard. I'm Marilyn Manson on That's for Your Favorite Rapper. He did, right? Like Kendrick, love Kendrick's flow, but I got to be honest with you, Kendrick. Stop talking about that you are the Omega, right? I thought you known better. I like the part I've been ducking the pandemic. I've been ducking the social gimmicks, right? But then, right, I answered the Gabrielle and all this other stuff, talking about you are the 70, but you don't live what you say. Just being honest, like they can't be. And Malcolm X warned us about this. He said, "Be careful. You have a counterfeit mind." He said, "No other nation do you know." Minister Malcolm Shabazz, he told us this. He said, "No other nation, no other people, and you don't consider yourself to be a people. You're trying to be American, right? You're trying to be something else. You're trying to be churchy. You try to be this." But he said, "No other group of people that you will look for will sit up there and look for entertainers to be their leaders. But we do, because you don't see them anymore. They off them. And we think it's more important to make Snoop a leader. Snoop Dogg is not a leader in our community. Somebody would say everybody is an example. No, Charles Barkley told you the truth. I am not your child's role model. I shouldn't be your child's role model. Everybody got on him for it, but I comprehended when he said it. You right, Charles? I got a whole father over here who doesn't throw people out of windows, who doesn't cuss all the time, who's working hard to make sure that he's providing for his family. I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying I got a hero over here. Kyrie Irving not a leader? No. Is Kyrie Irving somebody who we can support? Sure. But is he a leader? Does he even know what he's talking about? Like Kyrie, if you somebody, for example, that believes that the world is flat and you agree with Kyrie, fine. Can he explain it? No. But Kyrie also is somebody who does what? He gives finances to leaders, though. He learns from people and even puts something on his Twitter account. But I don't need him necessarily to be my leader. Now, if Kyrie starts to learn some things and grow in some things, but see, there's no shade. Kyrie is a piece of the puzzle. We're all parts of the body. Not everybody can be the brain. Not everybody can be the eye. I've told y'all before. I learned a long time ago. It's better to be a nail attached to the toe of the body than to be sitting up there being a nail that leaves the body and tries to make it on their own. If you clip me off the body, no matter how long I might be, I don't really serve a purpose if I'm not connected. All of us lead environment, right, so to speak, right? If your toe gets hit, if I'm the toe and I get hit, the whole body will react. So I take leadership roles, and sometimes every cell is vital to the body, whether it's coming in or it's passing away. Every cell is vital to the body. But Kyrie is not necessarily the brain, and that's okay. But Kyrie does a lot of stuff behind the scenes to help his community and to help us and to help our diaspora. Kyrie has no problem telling you about his native side. Kyrie has no problem telling you about his Israelite side. But what I'm saying is Kyrie is not necessarily my leader. Right? No offense to Kyrie. And Kyrie would tell you that he wants to be a great example. He wants to show people how to be a man, all these things. But I'm just being honest, Kyrie, learn how to be a husband. Right? Like, I'd rather you do that first before you're ready to start doing it. So yeah, Kyrie can plant a seed, right? Some plant, some water, but Yah gives the increase, right? He's none of us, including myself, are what's the word I'm looking for? None of us are responsible for the growth, the increase, right? And all of us plant seeds and all of us can water. At the end of the day, though, Yah gets the increase. But hear what I'm saying, right? Hear what Malcolm was trying to teach us. We are the only people, because we're so starved for true leadership, we're the only people that look for it wherever. We look for it for the person who made their money off of selling dope and killing our people. You said the camps walk the streets in New York and force people to see. That's great. The camps were walking the streets in New York before then. And even then they finished walking the streets in New York. It's still nation building. I'm excited about it. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that people are looking. IUIC, by the way, make sure that the IUIC that you're going into, make sure that you recognize what's going on as far as them coming out of Yahweh ben Yahweh and what that's about. Which once again did some great things, but also we're prostituting people and we're murdering people and we're doing a lot of stuff, which is why the CIA now looks at our group. One of the reasons, of course, this could be because of our complexion, but also one of the reasons they look at us crazy is because there are a lot of people who come out of that, including some of the IUIC brethren who are out there doing some wild stuff. So that's why Black Hebrew Israelite is not only because you're Black, but they put Black Hebrew Israelite as something because they saw what people were doing that were supposedly Black Hebrew Israelite. So I'm glad that we're seeing more. But what I'm saying is ultimately, yes, Kyrie planted a seed and people came out. But at the end of the day, like, how much more are we eating? Is what I'm saying. And I hope that doesn't make anybody offended. I'm just trying to show you, we are the only people that look for everybody to be leaders except leaders. See, watch this. There are people that grow up today that value Michael Jordan more than they value Malcolm X. That's problematic. Not just because Michael Jordan, owns slaves, because is part of Nike, and Nike has prisoners in America and prisoners in China and all that stuff. I'm talking about it's because we value putting a basketball in a hoop more than we value making sure that we take care of people's lives. That's the disconnect. That's the issue. Don't get it twisted. Oh, he's talking bad about Kyrie. He's talking bad about Biggie. Look, man, Biggie Smalls is the Dizzy Gillespie of my generation. If you know about Dizzy, then you know I'm giving him a huge compliment. Biggie Smalls is the Dizzy of my, but go back and look at Dizzy. Dizzy had to smile and do certain things and stuff like that to make money, but Dizzy was playing a game too, to where he was acting one way and doing something different. Tupac Shakur is the Miles Davis of my generation. But look at Miles' life and look at Pac's life. Tupac is different than Pac, right? And Tupac had a gift in him. But I'm not going to act like Tupac beating people up in the middle of the street and yelling behind the scenes of poetic justice and making sure that he was stomping a brother out who was the person that came back later on, and everybody allowed it to happen. They knew it was going to happen, but everybody looked the other way when it happened. But the brother went and took his life. And Tupac stomped him out and took his chain. I'm not going to pretend that that's all right. I'm just saying, I can't pretend like that part of it's all right. I can't pretend that the 10 crack commandments is cool, right? I get the flow. Biggie is probably the greatest person as far as just flow, right? Even if it's something that's not even his style. Armed and dangerous. Ain't too many can bang with us. Straight up, we know angel us, label us notorious, right? That his flow is wicked. And we even like to say he got a wicked flow, right? But I'll even say his flow is nice. How about that? Right? He got a nice flow. Right? He didn't even have to say anything. He could spell out his name. And everybody was like, oh, son, did you hear that? BIGPOPPA. No info for the DEA. Federal agents mad because I'm flagrant. Tap my cell and the phone in my bed. Like, he ain't really saying nothing, but his flow. I'm not saying Biggie never said anything. I'm just saying his flow was phenomenal. Okay, he stole his music. A lot of people do. Jay-Z steals Biggie lyrics, right? I wish people would stop acting like they don't take from anybody else and would just acknowledge it, because there ain't but so much music that's going to be out there. That's why you got to go back to the original, the origin. But what I'm trying to say, in all those things that happen, right, we have this thing of lifting up stuff. Like, everybody want to talk about Jay-Z. See, he made it and he changed and this and that or whatever. Jay-Z acts just like he did then, but now instead of doing what he did by destroying lives through drugs, he destroys lives as far as making sure he says who's going to be able to make music in the future and who doesn't. He kills careers, not people. Right? And we sit there, we don't think about it. The reason why well, not the only reason. I'm saying Busta, excuse me. The reason why DMX is not the only reason. He did have some drug issues and things like that. It's not the only reason. And once again, this is not actual Febreze. This is some stuff that my wife made. I'm sorry. Maybe I should take the label off the bottom. Well, y'all would already know what it is anyways, because y'all see the design at the bottom. But this is some stuff my wife made for mosquitoes. So I apologize. Please don't put Febreze all over your body, even though it wouldn't necessarily hurt you anyways. But that's not what I'm putting all over me. All right. But you got to recognize and realize when you're talking about this stuff. See, the reason why DMX didn't come out with another album, and DMX is like one of the best album sellers of all time, all of a sudden he just stopped. It's because Jay-Z took over over the company he was over. He calls DMX, says, yeah, we're gonna get it. He goes and leaves, comes back from vacation. DMX trying to get in contact with him. When we gonna do this? When we gonna do that? And Jay-Z just squashes everything, says, you ain't doing nothing. The same thing he would have done in the street is the same mentality he brought to where it is. What about Colin Kaepernick? Colin Kaepernick finally starting to get play. Who do you get? You go and you bring Jay-Z, and Jay-Z comes in. He says, we don't need anybody to kneel anymore. We'll make sure we take care of stuff behind the scenes. What did they take care of behind the scenes? They didn't take care of anything other than making sure that you didn't kneel anymore. Stephen A. Smith goes on, keeps talking about you don't need to kneel anymore. They're saying the same rhetoric. This is Boule talk. That's not you talking. That's Boule talking. That's counterfeit. By the way, when they were and here's something else. I've said this before. I'll say it again, and you might get mad about it. I don't really care right now. I'm gonna just be honest. Please forgive me. I'm not cold-hearted. I'm not callous, but I'm gonna just tell you the truth. Do you not realize that a lot of the people who stay in the streets as long as they do, they have to have relationship with the feds. They have to have relationship with the state government. They have to. Do you not realize how that works? If your gang gets to be a certain amount of gangster, they get to a certain level. They get a certain quality of men and women. At some point, the government takes notice and makes sure somebody from the government is either planted in or they just start working with them. You have to get permission. Yeah. Right? If you got 100 gangsters and only 1%, right? You got 100 gangsters and only one of them is an informant. It don't matter. You still got it. The gang is now tapped in. And I don't know the story, but I'm gonna just tell you, you got to start asking yourself, how in the world is it that we know what Jay-Z sold and how he off people? We know what Fat Joe was doing, even though Fat Joe actually served some time. So Fat Joe, I would actually leave him out of that. But I'm not even saying who did. I just want you to think. We know what T.I. did. Not think we know. We know, right? Verified. We know what Biggie did or what Pac did. We know, and now that they're not alive, right? But we know the stuff that Eminem did. We know the stuff that whoever your favorite rapper put them in there. We know these people put it out on wax. We know what 50 did. We know what Tony Yayo did. Now, Tony Yayo, he ain't no snitch. He went and did his time, whatever, whatever. I'm just saying. I'm just putting names out there. You know what these people did. And all of them got to where they are, and nobody ever once said, we're going to check them and bring them to court. That either means that the same thing that they would do to you or I doesn't matter because they make money, or, which could be part of it, or can we be honest? That means at least some of them, it was known what they were doing when they were down here, and they said, look, as long as you keep off in your community, we'll help you get up. I'm just trying to tell you, if they were willing to off you when they were in the street and the government looked the other way, you don't think that the government looks the other way when they'll off you with a word choice, with a mindset? You don't think the government will look the other way when some of them were still selling dope? You don't think the government will look the other way when they putting purple drink in front of you and they putting it on IG? They putting it right on IG, my guy. You don't think that the government sees other people smoking weed on IG and is locking them up for years. And here you are on IG. The government sees Ja Morant with a gun in a place that he's lawfully allowed to have it. Even though the government, I guess you could say, didn't step in, but the corporation who own the government are now having detectives check everything so they can have Ja Morant sit out and pay them back money. Meanwhile, though, your favorite rapper can go ahead and put the guns right on there. What's the guy's name? I forget what it is. This black guy out now, Charles something. Is it Charleston White or something like that? He is wild. He's out there. He's out there pulling out knives, talking about he gonna stab people on live sessions on different platforms, talking about how he used to do something to women that rhymes with grape. He talked about white women he used to do that to and laughed about it like it was nothing. And they're not going to do anything to him. But Ja Morant has a, and now y'all think that he's the most evil person. I'm trying to tell you, this is counterfeit. Something doesn't make sense. You're so in tune with counterfeit that you start to defend the counterfeit mind. You're defending the counterfeit mind. We should never have lifted up people making sure that they were telling you about they were the best dope dealer. Never. Because that means that they were the best people at killing. We were happy to hear somebody talk about how they pulled the thing out and they squeezed the trigger, but they might have never even had to squeeze the trigger. But how many people did they off because they made sure that they took their life to make sure that they could say, well, I need to make sure I had a better life for my family? You sound like the government. No wonder you work for them still. Because even though people won't tell you, when they talk about chattel slavery, when they talk about the UDC that we just talked about, the United Daughters of the Confederacy and stuff like that, and then the children of the Confederacy, and now the sons of the Confederacy, and all these people that are out now, this is what they want to tell you. This is what they even if they don't like slavery, maybe they don't. This is what they're really trying to tell you. You ready for this? This is what they're really trying to tell us. What they're really trying to tell you and I is this: slavery was a necessary evil. Lo siento, Jose. No comprendo what haciendo dinero and money with sufrimiento. I definitely know what ajeno means. So something Lee. I don't know. You have to explain it to me. I apologize. Right. But counterfeit. Counterfeit. Right. We're dealing with a counterfeit mind. How you doing, Samuel? We're dealing with a counterfeit mind, a reprobate mind, even. Yeah, we got caught up in so much in the flavor or in the Kool-Aid and have no clue what the flavor is. Right? Like we got caught up in the counterfeit. You think that Republicans are against Democrats and Democrats are against Republicans. You got caught up in the counterfeit mind. Right? You think that people really care about your vote. You got caught up in a counterfeit mind. It's a counterfeit system. Remember, the United States is not even a country, it's a corporation. Yeah, I got the dinero part, the money part. I was missing the ajeno, and I don't necessarily know what the sofriamiento was it means. But we got caught up in the counterfeit. It will argue what's not reality because you think that virtual is better than reality. Right? You think that virtual is better than reality. Right? In essence, you've been in virtual reality for a long time because once again, you identify with a straw man. I wonder if you identify with your people, what would your name be? Yeah, I figured the sufferment is probably something like suffering or a suffering, maybe ing. I forget what the mento means. Like I know mente is like saying ly on the end of a word, but anyways, right? Or maybe I suffer. I don't know. But long story short, right? You, I need you to comprehend, right? Or back on track rather, right? Forgive me for getting off track a little bit. Counterfeit. You said poem knowledge time, Allah would be your name. Okay. Well, if Allah would be your name, Allah short for Allaham, which means that you would still have the same family. Because before Allah was considered to be having to be Arabic, you know that even Arabic people, like see, even in that, like somebody like we have counterfeit comprehension. What is an Arabic person? You think an Arabic person is a nationality. Arabic just used to mean people that were nomadic. So Israel were Arabic. And even if you're talking about Ishmael, well, Ishmael and Isaac are brothers, which means that Israel is the nephew of Ishmael. Right? Like everything we're dealing with is coming from a counterfeit place. We're arguing things. I'm not saying you're arguing, I'm just saying in general, we're arguing things from a counterfeit perspective. It's not even real. And the people who are over you, they know that most people will not. What did we just read earlier in Sirach chapter 2? Right? That most people will not incline their ear to receive the words of Yah, of understanding. But you will do what it warns you about in Second Timothy chapter 3, right? Or I'm sorry, Second Timothy chapter 4. You will incline your ears to fables, what is not real. Most people want what is not real because what is not real binds people together. Why? Because most people would love to come together under anything that allows them to not be accountable. A lot female deity, yeah, if you're talking about somebody else's culture. If you're going to use words that weren't necessarily the words that they used back then, that you can get into something like that, right? But Allah is short for Alaham. Alaham is 3 in 1. So even he being masculine and feminine, because if you're talking about Alaham, Alaham, or what people say Elohim, Alaham is is dealing with Aleph, Lamed, He, Yad, Mem. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit lead us in the water, blood, and spirit. 3 in 1 over 3 in 1. Alaham, therefore, if you look at the characters, not what we're trying to talk about as far as words that somebody else has created with other letters, where we spell things, but when you actually get into the characters, each character having a meaning. Al, Allah, or Allah, even Allahim, right? The characters Aleph, Lamed, He. And by the way, if you look it up, right, Aleph, Lamed, He, actually are also things that those who were Muslims before there was such thing called Muslim, they use that word as well. They use Allahim, or even sometimes would say Yahavah, which now people try to say Yahweh or something like that, right? Matter of fact, there are people who don't even believe as far as being Muslim in the Quran, but they still use the term Allah because Allah is not something that necessarily is attached to just one religion or religiosity. So when we go into that, we're still having counterfeit arguments, not realizing that before that argument was a real, it became real. Because see, a construct, there are social constructs, but just because it's a construct doesn't mean it doesn't manifest into reality. So we're having arguments over constructs, not over the foundational principles, what's real. Why do you think people argue over what a man and a woman is today? Or it's all men's fault, it's all women's fault. Black men are trash, black women are trash, this, that, whatever. Why do you, these are constructs, but they've been spoken so long that now they started manifesting. But none of it's real. That's not the real issue. The real issue is that the people who took you into captivity had a plan in place that if you would go ahead and start identifying with a counterfeit version of yourself, you would continue that for hundreds, if not thousands of years. That was the plan put in place. Willie Lynch letter, 1712, Christmas Day, December 25th, 1712, 17, y'all would say 1712 in the year of your Lord, right? There's something there as a construct already. There was already something there as a construct. There was something constructed, and I was constructed upon interpretation, but we didn't interpret it correctly. So now your construct is off. We're speaking about stuff that's not even real. Anytime, it even says, anytime you get more reality about yourself, somebody's going to introduce something to you that's going to cause you to start doubting what you've seen, doubting what's tangible. Here, somebody can give you tangible examples, give you receipts and everything, and you'll still say, "I don't like it. I don't want it. It's not something that is there. I don't receive it." Take it all on, but take it all on to endure, that you might endure towards what? Righteousness. You even have it now where people are doing this thing where they're trying to, since the 1980s, they've been trying to say our diaspora. But once again, look who it's coming from, Boule. Our diaspora are trying to tell you, oh, there's no proof that Willie Lynch or any of these people ever existed. Excuse me? Willie Lynch was invited by his family. Lynchburg, Virginia. He was invited to Virginia. It says so in the letter that he went down to Jamestown River. And as he went down the Jamestown River, he smelled slaves who were dead, who were hanging from trees and stuff, or who were crucified and stuff like that. Go look up in history if that was true or not. Go look up what they did in the West Indies. Look up if that was true or not, because that's where he came from. And his modest plantation. Look up what the size of a modest plantation and tell me how modest he really was. What are you talking about? Look at if they used to take men who were the chieftains, and if they would go ahead and rip the person apart in front of everybody, in front of the men and the women, and then beat the other men, not to death, but to the point of death, because those people were worthy of being kept as great capital. They represented, to quote him, they represented good economics. See if they didn't burn him and tar and feather him. See if they didn't make him go be naked in front of his community to show that he couldn't cover himself. How in the world is going to cover you? See if they didn't pull him apart once they burned him and started putting him on fire. And then they hit the horses if the horses didn't outright start running, and they had his legs split so that everybody could see his testicles, so that you could see his nakedness, and see if they didn't rip him apart in front of everybody else. And then go read the curses of Deuteronomy 28, start at verse 54, and tell me if what I'm saying is still a lie. But they would have you believe, you incline your ears to fables, because if you say, oh no, that's not, then they're not going to be accountable, because Willie Lynch also says that if we ever go back to being husbands and wives again, according to our culture and our standards, he says this in his letter. He said that would be the thing that would cause us to go right back. He said, because what they did is they reversed what a man and a woman was in our society. They said when we reversed it in their society, the wife, right, or the woman who normally be covered by her husband is now no longer a wife, but she's a woman who, just like a mare, a female horse, will eat out of our hand, because we've broken, right, even buck breaking, right, we've broken her husband, and now he runs around scared. He's only around to do labor and to make sure that he has babies. That's it. He said, if you ever go back to your your community, to your culture, to your ways of doing things, and you ever became husbands and wives according to your standard, he said the system is over. And our people are the ones that hate to hear me talk about marriage. It's wild. Because if you ever got marriage right, your community would change. Because what happens in your house is going to affect your community. And if your community is better, what happens in your community is going to affect your house. If we ever went back to our nature, come on, Sister Monica. If we ever went back to our nature, all this stuff goes away. That's how important it is. This is why you can have people like Sam Smith that don't even like you as a people will use your culture and stuff. And forgive me, I can't sing like I used to, so forgive me if I sound torn up and I got to come down some octaves, right? I used to be able to sing this. I don't know if I can even get close anymore, but he sings that song, "Stay with me," right? Because you're all I need. This is love, it's clear to see. So, darling, stay with me, right? He got that song, right? He can sing that song, but he says he's gender fluid. He might be a man one day, he might not be a man the next. He'll come on there with a transgender woman and he'll say, you need to make sure that you lift him up, and he'll dress like a demon. They'll let him sing that. They'll let him sing that song. But you don't get to sing that song. They don't uplift you when you sing that song. Why don't they uplift you when you sing that song? Y'all know that song, right? Y'all heard that song before. Why is that song not as much in our lexicon? We got away from those songs. Now we don't even sing anything close to that. Why? Because that doesn't sell, because our mind is so messed up as a community, and people's mindset about us is so messed up that they don't even think that that's what people would buy into. Because when you buy something, you have to buy into it. Yeah, when you change yourself, you can change your nation. Mm-hmm. You hear what I'm saying? You can't even get there, right? You don't even have, right? You don't even think of yourself singing that, right? I mean, we grew up with stuff where you would think that was us. We were the first people to put that out, but guess what? Other people took that out, and now you don't even see that as yourself. You'd rather see Chris Brown talking about these bees ain't loyal. I think that's Chris Brown. I don't even know if that's Chris Breezy or not. If it's not him, please forgive me, Chris Breezy, if you ever see this. But that used to be us. And we used to consider that. Right? We used to sing songs. Girl, you know, right? Linda used to come on and tear it up. But you don't even see that in you anymore. And guess what? There's more people that don't look like you buying your stuff in America than there are people that look like you, which means that they're not selling it to you. You got to start asking yourself, see, in your mind, you go, Cardi B is somebody who represents us. No, she doesn't. They sew into Cardi, because, and I don't even know nothing about Cardi. I'm sorry, I don't even know a Cardi B lyric. I don't know a Cardi B song. Forgive me. I really don't. No offense. I don't know if it's great or not. I'm just saying I don't even know anything about her. I don't know if she can rap. I don't know if she can't rap. Whatever. I'm just letting you know, for real, right? But at the end of the day, Cardi, when you gets up there with the fake booty and the fake breasts and, so much makeup, I don't even care wear your makeup, but so much makeup on her face that it's cracking up and stuff like that. And she gets away with the fact that she was literally, drugging men. Probably slept with some of them. So, basically date, rape, stuff like that, thieving, stealing things. But she gets to go ahead and get a pass because the way people see our women, they see them as Cardi B. Lil Kim sold the way that she did because the way people see our women, they see them as Lil Kim. The way that people see Foxy Brown is the way that they see our women. So they sold you Foxy Brown. The way that they think that we think about our women is Dutty wine. So y'all learned how to wine. The way that they see our men treating our women is Shaggy. It wasn't me. Mr. Lover, right? That's how they see. That's how they see you. Right? They don't sell to you. You just happen to buy some stuff and you think that you're supporting your people. That's not how they're not selling the album to you. They're not selling the Tootsie Roll to you. Oh, y'all thought y'all see? We be acting like these children are the only ones. Y'all forgot? I don't know what you've been told. It ain't the butterflies, the Tootsie Roll. You think that your daughter is looking crazy because of the way she dancing. You think your son is looking the way because of the way they dancing. You forgot to the windows, to the wall. I don't even got to finish the lyric. You already just said it. Not only did the sweat drip down, but it said he gonna make all these females what? And it was the sisters up there. Skeet, 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 skeet. It was the sisters who was saying the lyrics more than the brothers. You don't have to act like it. I remember seeing y'all do it in high school, junior high school, all that. I remember seeing y'all doing it in college. Y'all still do that. Let that song come on right now. Let you hear the first part of the lyric. I done been to the club about 50 11 times. Can I? Y'all already gonna say the rest. And gonna dance and make sure that you accent your booty when he say panty line, right? But you sitting up there talking about the you. You got something in you still. I'm just saying, we lifted this stuff up. It was counterfeit. They're not selling you. They're not selling to you. You're buying into a counterfeit version of you that they know that a bunch of people out there. You know how when I really learned this? Can I be honest with you? I learned it in the military when I used to do gate guard duty. Right? Sometimes some of the most boring stuff that you deal with, but there would be all types of officers. I'm talking about the admirals, the generals, people from other countries that would be coming through some of the bases I was on because I was on very secure bases. So sometimes I'd be at the gate, sometimes I'd be in certain buildings or whatever, and I would hear the music that they'd be listening to, and they would be coming in, and the music would be banging, and I hear something coming through, and it'd be like a little cheap car or something, and I hear the music banging, and I'm like bobbing my head as they coming up or whatever. And then the window goes down. And I look on the window. I'm like, wait a minute, those are 3 stars on there. It can't be. And sure enough, it's an admiral putting his window down. White man got his window down, bumping the stuff, listening to some of the most crazy music, right? That you would think that anybody, our people, would listen to. And sitting there talking about this, and girls talking about all this stuff, and booty shaking and raunchy and all this stuff or whatever. And I got to stand there as the music is playing and give him a salute after I've checked his stuff, or if it's depending on the what level that we're at, security level that we're at. I got to make sure I might have to check his ID, check around his car, whatever. But I let him in and I give him a salute as he's sitting there listening to stuff that demeans us, because they're not selling the stuff to you, they selling it to them. The 3-star admiral who was writing things and making decisions that were going to cause the security of a whole corporation or a group of states or a group of nations, right? Or worldwide stuff that was going to be hanging on him, when he was thinking about our women, my sisters, my mother, my wife, my daughter, when he was making decisions about them, he was making decisions from a mindset that that's who we are. And you don't think there's anything wrong with it. We defend the counterfeit. Don't forget it was Chuck Berry who was talking about, and even before Chuck, there were others too. But don't forget it was Chuck Berry singing songs like My Ding-a-ling. I didn't even learn about it. I learned about it through Bart Simpson, which means Chuck Berry was singing that song because that's how white women were over sexualizing men, that they were literally singing about their ding-a-ling. Sorry for the language, but I'm just telling you, there's a song. Look it up. It's older than Chuck, but Chuck Berry was out here singing songs on stage where they would sing it a cappella. I saw Bart Simpson sing it, and I thought, oh, I thought it was funny. I thought they just made it up. I'm young. I'm thinking Bart Simpson singing it. That's funny. Wow. Okay. Well, that's crazy that he would be in a choir singing My Ding. Come to find out, that was something that our people were singing because they thought that it sold to white women who might have negrophilia and want to be able to feel up on our, you know what? Oh, I'm sorry. This might be too much. People starting to go off now. People don't want to hear this part, but this is real. See, we don't like what's real. There's some real stuff that's still in you, and you got to get it out because it shouldn't have ever. It's manifested in you, but you want counterfeit. What's counterfeit has begun to manifest. Amen. As a child, I thought as a child, right? All those things. How you doing, Brother Ali? Yeah, Phil Collins and stuff like that, sure. Especially if you're going to talk about him doing Tarzan and stuff like that. I mean, that's a whole bag of worms within itself. But even going back, yeah, sure. Yeah, we know all those lyrics, don't know any scriptures. Can't lie, might do a little shake, then you catch yourself. Hey, I'm just saying. I'm just saying it's in us. And by the way, I'm not saying you can't ever gyrate your hips. Our people gyrate our hips. Our people, right? We do, gyrating at the hips, stuff like that. Ain't nothing wrong with, that's old. That's that little Martin stuff, right? Ain't nothing wrong with some of that stuff. We got rhythm in every part of our body. Matter of fact, you might need to do some of that stuff. Sometimes the gyration of your hips is actually great for your body. It's great for your constitution. I'm just saying, what is the purpose of it? What's the thought process of it? We're carrying some stuff. See, they're not selling you to you. They're selling a counterfeit to others, and you don't have anything. So you're like, if I want to listen to music, I guess I got to go on there. See, we don't really support our own stuff anyways. So the only thing that you have is what somebody is selling you, but they're not selling you. They're selling you a counterfeit. So that's all that you had. I get it. We keep thinking that everything that we got was the best of ourselves. Look, I was just my wife and I, when we were traveling last night, I didn't really know, like, I know who Lauryn Hill is and stuff, but I had just been catching up on some stuff. Lauryn Hill kind of popped up recently, got her head shaved and some other things. And she was talking with Isaiah Thomas, and they were talking about some real stuff. And apparently she's been coming out. I haven't been able to find all the interviews, but I was only able to catch little pieces of interviews and stuff. But apparently, like, Lauryn Hill's been telling her story and basically how she was groomed. I had no clue. Because in my mind, especially being younger, I always looked at Lauryn Hill as an adult. But Lauryn Hill, she started when she's 13, 14. But in my mind, I think of Lauryn Hill, right? Even like when you see her in Sister Act 2, my wife had to be like, yeah, she was a baby in Sister Act 2. And I was like, oh, in my mind, I thought she was an adult playing a child. Like, because to me, Lauryn Hill, she's older than me. So I always thought Lauryn Hill was an adult. That's just the way my mind worked, right? Fuji La La and all that stuff. I always, from every time I saw her in my mind, she was always, the big homie. She was always like the older cousin, if you will. Like, she was always the girl that maybe you might even crushed on, but you knew she was way too old for you, and you weren't even an adult yet, in my mind. But she ain't that far from me. I didn't know this. Matter of fact, I think. No. Yeah, I'm right. She's a little older, right? Yeah, she's a little older, but not much. Maybe like 4.5 years older than me. In my mind, she's like 10 years, 20 years older than me, just because when I grew up, we looked up to her, especially when she came up with the miseducation of Lauryn Hill. That's all I knew. But I didn't realize though, and thank you for all the likes and the shares and all that stuff. Thank you so much for being on with us. I didn't realize that she had basically been groomed. Right? I didn't realize Proswell, who's only 2 years older than her, was asked by our parents, hey, if y'all gonna get into this music thing, make sure you protect her. And he did to a certain degree, but then also kind of looked the other way. And Wyclef, who Pras kind of pushed back a little bit at first, but then Wyclef basically was just trying to get with Lauryn. And Wyclef even ended up married and still was messing with Lauryn when he got married. And even when Lauryn got married to Bob Marley's child, right? She was still messing around at first with him. And when she got pregnant with her first child from Marley's son, she actually had to tell Wyclef, and Wyclef and her, that's when they started having the issues, right? And in my mind, I thought they were just a couple. See, this is how ignorant I was. I thought that they were a couple, and they were just together. And then all of a sudden they broke up, and when they broke up, the Fugees broke up. That's what I thought. That's how ignorant I was. But come to find out, no, like, all this stuff is happening. And then they tried to blame Bob Marley's son for them breaking up, and the reality, and they tried to blame, she got with I wouldn't say he's an Israelite, but sounds like somebody who was like Israelite-ish. I forget what they called him, Brother Joseph or Brother Johnson or something like that. I forget what his name was, but basically they tried to say he was the reason that everything happened. But she said the reason was because the industry basically, like, she got to an age where she realized that so much stuff was going on. She didn't want to be controlled. She's dealing with a lot of emotional damage. She just withdrew. And so a lot of people, because I know a lot of musicians that played with her. I never had the honor, but I know a lot of musicians who actually played with her. And they would always talk about, and still to this day, if she does, it's very rare now, but even if she does a concert or something like that here or there, she's even still to this day, she's very she's very mean. She's very, like, I don't want to use the word diva-ish because we kind of overdo that term, but she's very like what you would think of the stereotypical diva, but like on steroids. She's very mean towards people she works with. But I didn't realize she had all that emotional damage. She was groomed. Wyclef was messing with her when Wyclef was like 18, 19. She would have been about 13, 12, 13. And he was messing with her. And basically he was doing all this stuff, and then she even realized he was probably using her. Because yes, I think, I don't want to go to the extent some people go to, like Wyclef never had any talent. Wyclef wasn't on her level singing or rapping, but at the same time, Wyclef, he wrote beats, he played a lot of instruments. Wyclef is very instrumental in a lot of sounds that we have, especially like if you're into even Haitian music, Caribbean music, things like that. Especially like one of the bangers that I love about Wyclef is Song Vigie, right? Where he's doing patois the whole time. Like, it's a really cool song. Especially if broken, it's like broken French a little bit, their version of patois or whatever. But at the same time, in my mind, this person that I'm like, man, he's kind of got a little niche. Like, he's not great, but at the same time, he's kind of very creative, and a lot of people's songs and a lot of stuff that he wrote for even other people's stuff. But now I got to realize he a pedophile. And then he got mad that he couldn't keep controlling her when she grew up in the womanhood. He couldn't control her the same way she used to. And so that ended up turning to breaking up, because he wouldn't support her solo career. But if she's gonna go solo to try and get away from your control, and if you really loved her, you would think, even if you was cheating, you would think that, hey, all right, like, I'll support you. Look at what you did for us. Look at what you did for the Fugees, etc. So in my mind, I thought Lauren was this person that just kind of like, she needs to chill some. And that, look, like, y'all broke up. Hey, whatever. Why y'all got to take? We even used to talk about this in our community. We'd be like, why, man? So they gonna deprive us of good music because they can't get along? Then I thought I was being more grown up, and I was like, well, if you just broke up with somebody, why would you want to keep being in the same group and seeing this person every day? But come to find out, no, she was groomed. Right? She was groomed. And I know it's not originally her song, right? Right? But when she was singing, I heard he sang a good song. I heard he had a style. Like, she's singing through some pain. She mean the thing, but she being groomed. I didn't even realize. Come on, Lauren. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Lord. But that's what happens, because once again, we're so into the artificial that it never even entered into our minds. Can I be honest with you? I look at it as Aaliyah the same way. In my mind, even though she passed away, to me, she was the big homie. But she was hanging out with the big homies, and the big homies was all messing with her. Counterfeit. I was sold counterfeit stuff. Right before even Beyonce, Aaliyah was groomed. Beyonce was groomed, but Beyonce's family and the Beyonce kind of sold their soul to the devil. Because look at Beyonce Beyonce was getting groomed by others first before she started getting groomed by Jay-Z and them, right? But Beyonce was trying to get groomed. But remember, go look up Beyonce songs. Go look up Beyonce songs and listen to the songs she was doing, like the one she did in Gold Member, the Austin Powers movie she was on. The people that were grooming her ain't had no rhythm and stuff. So Beyonce's solo career wasn't really important. Remember, everybody, if Aaliyah was a lot, can I say something? Y'all don't want to hear this. If Aaliyah had continued to live on, you wouldn't cared about who Beyonce was. Am I an Israelite? Yes. By birth, by bloodline, by E1B1A blood, by righteousness standard. Yes, all that. Yep. Even Jews, who, whether they be Ashkenazi, Khazarian, or Sephardic, they have to recognize my tribe. Yes. Or my branch, because tribe is what you call the people you look down upon. Branches of Zion are different because we're part of the tree. So I'm part of the tree. Nevertheless, right? If there had been no Aaliyah, however you feel, whether you feel it was manufactured, offing, or whatever, somebody took her life, it was on purpose, or whether it was an accident, if Aaliyah was around, you wouldn't have cared about Beyonce. Destiny's Child was all right in the beginning. People forget. People forget, right? That Destiny's Child wasn't what you think of as Destiny's Child today. Destiny's Child was all right at one point, right? Matter of fact, if you know about Destiny's Child used to be like 8 people and used to be more gospel than anything else. And then it was 4 people, and then they got rid of them, and then it was 3 people, and they got rid of one of them, and then it was 3 people again. And y'all don't even like the third person now. How do you test yourself? Well, I mean, I've been tested because I've had blood drawn before in the past, so I know what my blood is. But at the end of the day, well, you know, you can tell by your blood. If you're E1B1A, then right, or even watch this. If you're O positive, it's not as simple as this, but if you are O positive, there's a huge percentage. We're talking about 95% chance at least, right? I'm being nice. 95% chance at least that you are Yashar in some way, shape, or form. It's almost impossible to not be. I won't. I'll leave it at that. That's not what I'm talking about today. But I'm just saying, right? But go back to Aaliyah, right? Well, if you have blood drawn, you can tell if you're E1B1A, right? Basically, you can look up a test to see if you have it, right? If you're E1B1B, you're tied to Israel as far as through Kemet, because Kemet and Israel eventually came together, right? So Cush, Kemet, Israel, all of them come together at some point. So if you want to look at E1B1A or E1B1B, that's where you see even the African connection, or even see the native connection, or see the Israelite connection, see all three of them being one. All righty. So I'm gonna leave that there though. But once again, so going back to Aaliyah, in my mind, Aaliyah, because I'm young, when Aaliyah's up there, and she's always up there with who? She's up there with Missy. She's up there with Timberland. She's up there. Y'all remember Magoo? She's up there with Magoo. She's up there with Genuine. So in my mind, right, Aaliyah was the big homie. Even when she did the movie, the vampire movie. Not the Interview with the Vampire, but by the same person, where Lestat was in it too. Something at Queen of the Damned. Even when she did the movie, in my mind, Aaliyah's a grown woman. That's just the way my mind worked. And then you get older, you're like, wait a minute, Aaliyah was a child? And she was doing all this stuff. And by the way, before I even introduce Mr. Kelly, see, this is counterfeit. This is the counterfeit stuff that be living rent-free in our mind until we deal with it. I had to realize, wait a minute, before I even talk about Mr. Kelly, Timberland was in love with Aaliyah. And matter of fact, Timberland married his wife because she looked like Aaliyah. Timberland couldn't really get play from Aaliyah, but he was grooming Aaliyah. Where were her parents? Getting paid. But then we introduced, right? By the way, don't forget Jay-Z was into Aaliyah. And Jay-Z's people were helping Aaliyah come up with them hits. It wasn't just Timberland. And then guess what? Once Aaliyah's not in the picture, however you want to look at it, right? Jay-Z can't get with Aaliyah. Aaliyah doesn't really want Jay like that. Aaliyah ends up passed away. And now what's left over is that now the same people who were working with Aaliyah, now Beyonce, who was not that popular at that time, all of a sudden start getting these beats that were supposed to go to Aaliyah. And now you starting there talking about looking so crazy in love and stuff. Uh-oh. Nah. Right? I'm just trying to tell you, right? And she being passed from person to person to person. Is married to R. Kelly, who wrote the song, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. Dame Dash. Now he'll say he wasn't. He'll say that's just his friend. But Dame Dash, who was in Jay-Z's circle, same people, also going out with Aaliyah. At some point, you got to take your culture back, and you got to stop living in the counterfeit. At some point, you must take your culture back, and you must stop living in the counterfeit. At some point, you must take your culture back, and you have to stop living in the counterfeit. Of course, Beyonce was groomed, but Beyonce was put in the same situation that Aaliyah was. And when we didn't care if it happened to Aaliyah, why would you care that it happened to Beyonce? And now Beyonce is into some witchcraft stuff because people who should have protected her in her community and kept her safe, why would she look for the word of Yah to keep her safe if the people who swore that they were supposed to be good Christians were allowing her to go ahead and be taken advantage of? She grew up in a society that said, go ahead and sell her soul. Make her the sacrifice. But we don't have a ram in the bush. Just put her on as a sacrifice. You said Aaliyah's uncle was married to Gladys Knight. I don't know who is Aaliyah's uncle. You talking about Les Brown? Because Gladys Knight, only two husbands I know that she had. I know she was married to Les Brown for a minute. They got many children together. You talking about the motivational speaker is Aaliyah's uncle? because she was married to Les Brown, and then she was married to this guy who's a Mormon. She's actually a Mormon, at least she was last time I checked. I think she's a Mormon now, right? Which is really ridiculous too, because Mormons don't like our people. Oh no, Aaliyah was married to R. Kelly, even younger than that. Matter of fact, Aaliyah was probably being passed around while she was married to R. Kelly. And if you want to talk about sex as marriage is sex, well then definitely by the time she was 13. But in my mind, and you know what's wild about this? Can I be honest? Aaliyah's probably the only one out of all these people. I'm not saying that she wasn't hypersexualized and stuff, but hear what I'm saying. In my mind, this is how crazy it is. I'm not even saying Aaliyah was righteous, not whatever, because obviously there's also part of this where we don't talk about the fact, yes, she was groomed, but also she was part of the problem in this, right? Like she was making some decisions. Now, why she was making decisions, I don't know. I can't give you all the reasons. I'm just putting that out there. Also, too, though, in my mind, Aaliyah is somebody that I never actually thought about. Like, and all these people were like, when they presented us with Little Kim and Foxy Brown, I never really liked Foxy Brown, but like that. But Lil Kim, Foxy Brown. There's only like, when we were growing up with people, and by the way, the first one I'm about to say now, I know she's a lesbian, or at least she was, or she was bisexual, or whatever she is now. But Queen Latifah, MC Light, I guess Lady of Rage, but Lady of Rage for me is a little later. She's like around Busta Rhymes, right? But Queen Latifah, excuse me, MC Light, and Aaliyah are three sisters that I never over sexualized, but I always had like mad respect for. Right? Like I never, in my mind, I never thought, like, I'm not gonna say that she's not beautiful. Whatever. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Even as a child, I never once, or as a teenager, I never once was like, man, Aaliyah was like somebody I was fawning over. Oh, Missy Elliott too. Yeah, I never thought of Missy Elliott being that either. But Missy Elliott was, well, I don't know. I don't know much about Missy Elliott outside of rumors. But long story short, okay, she was married to somebody called Barry Hankerson too. Okay, so she had a lot of husbands. Didn't know, right? But I'm just saying all that to say, I never once was attracted to Aaliyah outside of her music, her dancing, and her style. I never was actually sexually attracted to her. But I hold Aaliyah at a higher regard, right? Matter of fact, another one, even though she was over sexualized too, and probably was groomed too. What's the singer Maya? She was never as popular. I think her name was Maya, right? Um, I was never really hyper attracted to her either, and I never thought she could sing that well either, to be honest. But she had gifts, she had talent. But those 5, maybe 6 people. Matter of fact, Missy Elliott, she's kind of from my hood a little bit. She's kind of close to where my family's from, in VA, her and Timberland, so and Pharrell actually. so, uh, so I always just supported like Timberland and Missy, just because they were kind of like, that was kind of like us, like, oh, look at them doing whatever, right? Oh, Brandy too. Yep, yeah, Brandy. Um, Monica. Monica, I kind of actually found attractive or whatever a little bit, but Brandy, I never really found attractive or whatever. But I'm just saying, and I'm not saying in the bad way, I'm just saying I never really thought of them in sexual spaces. Like it was never really my mindset to like think of them like that. But that's what they gave us over and over again. But once again, they sold them. And see, for me, like, that's supposed to be our diaspora. So for me, it's sad when I see somebody that has to have a fake behind to make it. For me, it's sad because you shouldn't make it based off of your sexual nature. I don't even know who is Gianna Jackson. I'm just being honest. I don't know that name. If that's bad or not, I don't know. I don't know who Gianna Jackson is. I got to look that up to even see who you're talking about. Oh yeah, I don't know who that is. American Idol person. I have no clue who that is. Oh, Janet Jackson. Yeah, Janet Jackson was probably groomed though too. Janet Jackson, the Jackson family, and whatever the Barges, they basically, kind of gave her up to what's his face, to El DeBarge, or whatever his real name is. Forgive me. And he was out there on drugs at that point, smacking her around, doing all types of stuff, whatever. But they let that slide. because it was going to make them more famous. That was a family move. And while I'm not mad at that, because families should honor each other, take care of each other, stuff like that. But yeah, they threw her out there, and she was really messed up. That's how she ended up with Jermaine Dupri, and then she ends up eventually marrying the guy that she married for money. And they had a 5-year deal where if she stayed with him, had a child by him, that she can go ahead and leave with the child, and he would give her $500 million. So she got with him, and she got 500 million. I believe it was an Arabic guy. I feel like I could be wrong in that. I might have the wrong place in the world, but he was a prince. But yeah, that was what there is. Like I said, it's a counterfeit. In our mind, we don't even think about that, right? I'm gonna say something that a lot of people don't want to say, and it's very protected. But if you think about it, it just makes too much sense, because this is how stuff works when children are groomed. You can't tell me. Now, look, I don't even believe that Michael Jackson actually touched those babies, but Michael Jackson had very bad behavior around children for sure, right? But you're not gonna tell me that Michael Jackson wasn't groomed. We never talk about that in all this story. I'm not saying making excuses for him. How you doing, Brother Rick? I'm not making excuses for him. But you're not going to tell me that Michael wasn't groomed. How old was Diana Ross when her and Michael were always around each other like that? No, that was just her. No. Solomon is 8 years old right now. I'll be doggone if there's going to be a 20-something-year-old woman hanging around my son like that. I know Diana Ross. She's one of the ones we look up to. I'm just saying. I'm just telling you. Let somebody Diana Ross's age be around my 8-year-old son. See what happened. See if Pastor Kofi in the news because he had to go to jail. But sometimes too, what happens is when it happens to little boys, right, in a very masculine world, we actually think that's cool that the little boy would be messed with. Michael Jackson used to be in interviews with Diana Ross, and she would say stuff to him, and he would be really shy, and he would be bashful and stuff. But if you look at him, that's what a little boy would do. Little boy behavior: shy, bashful, like, ooh, she's saying stuff, and everybody like, oh, what, you're a sex symbol and blah blah. And he looked like this. Why is at that point he's like 15, 16, and she, getting up on 30? Why would somebody like that be talking to Michael Jackson like that? Oh yeah, Quincy Jones definitely did some grooming. Quincy Jones was, Quincy Jones slept with uh even though he was drugged out, but that's what you do. You get people and you drug them out and stuff. Now this wasn't a child, but you can groom adults too, right? Richard Pryor was groomed, and Quincy Jones took his behind, to say it lightly, and I mean took it. So I'm not talking about that's even what he was into, but did that. Will Smith more than likely fell in that with Quincy Jones. How you doing, Gary? Hopefully you're doing well across the pond. Also, too, Gary, I think in the description with the video, we have a WhatsApp thing that we've been using. Or if you want to hit me up on Messenger, we're trying to do a WhatsApp thing. We have WhatsApp for different things that are part of SOC. We're also trying to develop one just specifically only for those that are in the UK. So if you want to kind of be part of some things and know some things that are going on from time to time, but hopefully everything's going well business-wise and stuff. Right? But I'm just saying we have a artificial version of it. My mind, I'm just gonna be honest with you, my mind doesn't even think about those things. Or at least it did not for a long time. In my mind, I never really thought about Michael Jackson being groomed. But he had to be groomed. There's no way. Watch this. Michael Jackson was groomed by his own father. Not even as far as his father trying to sleep with him, but watch this. Do you know where did the Jackson 5 start practicing before they got an opportunity to get in front of the television screen and start touring and going in front of other? Where was the Jackson 5's first gigs? Do you even know where their first gigs were? Do you know where their first gigs were? The Jackson 5's first gigs? And thank you for the love. Appreciating how you doing, Zahara. Well, yeah, you got groupies in the room and stuff too, right? Which means also too, sometimes they're looking at the little boy and being like, Michael, do you want some of this? Especially if some of the older brothers are drugged out, right? Their first gigs were not in church. Matter of fact, they weren't, the typical Christians. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. They didn't even believe in church stuff like that. Michael was raised a Jehovah's Witness. They used to sing out of the brown book. If you know about being a Jehovah's Witness, that brown book, the song of forget what you call it, the song of something, the songs of something, whatever they call that book. And you had as a da 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 da. I used to love that song. What is that? I can't remember the word. Steadfast, we all need to be far from this world we keep free as we uh, as we feed on Yah's truth and live eternally, or something like that, right? Like a classical song, right? But they sung out of that book. If you're familiar with that book, right? That's what they were on, right? So they didn't do their first gigs. Really, I don't even know. Maybe it's not their first ones, but their first gigs they were doing as far as money and getting used to it and stuff. They used to do gigs at strip clubs. They used to do gigs at strip clubs. Michael Jackson, before you knew about him. Remember, when you knew about him, he was like 6'7" when you first started seeing him. So before you knew about him, they were getting gigs at strip clubs. All of the boys were underage. Right? He was being groomed already. I'm not saying that what he did was right, that you should give him a pass, any of that. I'm just trying to tell you he was being groomed already. Right? So by the time you deal with him as an adult, even though the children came out, I don't care what that video says. I'm here to tell you, look up the paperwork. It wasn't just this stuff was settled out of court. One of the children who settled with, or whose family settled with him, ended up offing themselves when they got to be an adult and wrote a whole thing talking about how his family lied about it. All three of them had, before that new documentary came out, right? All three of them had came out and said, oh yeah, we lied about it. Matter of fact, one of them who lied about it and whose family settled, Michael still took care of stuff and made sure he paid for his marriage to his wife because he thought the young man still needed to have a great chance at life, even though he had messed him over. So I'm saying all that to say that we live by the artificial so much, right? And a lot of us, we live by artificial so much that we miss what Yah really has for us. I'm sorry, I guess somebody's blasting whatever music they blasting there. But it's time for us to take our leave anyways. I'm about to lose battery. So we're going to go ahead and do our lives. We're going to end the live there. Thank you so much, everybody, for being on. Please check us out on all the platforms that we're on. Check out the podcast. Thank you, everybody who's on Facebook, everybody on YouTube, everybody on TikTok. We appreciate you so very much. And you guys take care. And we'll talk to you guys later this evening. Pray for us. We've gotten where we're going to go. I'm going to go to the store, pick up something for tomorrow so I can start taking care of some stuff here. In the meantime, though, I'm going to be sleeping today. So I will try to reach out maybe to a couple people. I'm going to just be honest. I'm going to be sleeping today. I'll see y'all at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. Don't forget the classes will be starting soon. Those of you who signed up for classes, I'll make sure I start reaching out to you today at some point. It might just be text only, but we'll start reaching out to you guys to make sure that you guys are aware of the classes. You know what's happening. We can send you the information. You guys are aware of the donation and how all that works. Don't forget, we're getting closer to the Feast of Tabernacles. We're still in the midst of our fasting now, right? We were supposed to fast August 1st, fruit fast, August 1st through what? August 15th. What is today? August the 14th. So tomorrow evening is going to be our prayer and fasting. Praise Yah. So hopefully you guys have been hanging in there and you've been doing some great stuff, doing some great work with it. And there's still time, even if you only join us at the end, feel free to go ahead and join us. But tomorrow evening will be our prayer and worship. How that works is we just basically make our prayer requests known and we come together and we touch and agree. I got to do a quick version of the shout out today. So I only have a few things up because literally I'm about to lose the phone. Hopefully we don't lose it during the shout out. So I'll explain how the shout out works in literally just a couple seconds. But thank you guys for being on. We appreciate you. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ. I'm sorry, please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Thank you, everybody, for being on. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, Please remember, as always, Yashala, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace. To those of you that are still with us on TikTok, this is going to be a short version of it.